Mic'd up.
Of the Rovner Report on the Mic'd Up platform. I'm AJ Rovner, joined alongside once again Steve Shanamanico for the New York Rangers coverage finale. Move over to some baseball next week, Mets Yankees, where our fandoms differ. But the Rangers do miss the postseason. It was a nice capper though last night. We'll get into all of that, the last couple games, what we think the Rangers will do in the offseason. And yeah, that's pretty much where we'll go today. Steve, any lasting thoughts about these last few games? Rangers missed the playoffs by, I believe, 6 points. So, any just overall thoughts, first things that come to your mind?
Well, I think the obvious, the disappointing season, high expectations, started off out of the shoot pretty good. 12-4, I think, was the start. And then, as we talked about, yeah, things just went downhill in a hurry. Could have been locker room issues, could have been not meshing with the coaching staff, could have been coaching staff use of player personnel, well, whether it be, you know, demoting Kreider, just not having Kreider and Mika playing together, just whatever it might. It just was a crap show. After the first 12 or 14 games or whatever it was, and they couldn't find traction. January they started play a little bit better after a dismal November December swoon. Igor was inconsistent, great at sometimes, very average on other times, and just where nothing seemed to work. Trade deadline, they brought guys in, not a difference maker. JT started off pretty strong.
Yeah.
He kind of petered out a little bit. So it just was one of those years where you don't know whether you have to do a clean sweep of guys. There's a lot of talent there, or try and mix and match and improve the team. They didn't improve their team enough in the offseason, obviously, with Ryan Riley and who was the other guy they picked up in the offseason?
Carrick.
Carrick was great. I mean, he got the Players Player Award, which is a great honor, I would think, if I was a player. Awesome to get. Um, so he's fine. Fourth line guy does a great job. But got not enough in the offseason to make a difference to get him over the hump, in which they were close last year. So I put that on Drury, the Trouba debacle, the Goodrow, you know, letting him go. Two big guys in the locker room, physical guys. So I'll pin a lot on Drury, a lot on Laviolette. The players didn't perform either, so I think blame goes all around.
So, I have a couple headlines as once again, and I'll let you speak about these two, Steve. Couple of things though, is I just want to reiterate Rangers finished 39, 36, and 7, 85 points. 6 points out of a playoff spot. As I said earlier, they finished 19, 19, 3 at home, 20, 17, and 4 on the road. They are the only team that did not make the playoffs besides the Blue Jackets that finished with a positive goal differential. I think that's interesting. They were +1. So take that as you will. Some Rangers statistical leaders as the year wraps up. Panarin, pretty much every offensive category goes to him. 37 goals, 52 assists, 89 points. Plus minus goes to Will Cooley. Finishes the year as a +12. Obviously was helped out last night. I believe he was a +3. Adam Fox led this team in ice time, averaging over 23 points, 23 minutes per game. Panarin had 8 power play goals. That led the team. 18 power play assists in pretty much every offensive category. Mika finishes the year as a -22. That's by far the worst. So, those are some stats. We'll go to goaltending really quick. Igor goes 27, 29, and 5 with a 286, 905 line. Quick, 11, 7, and 2, 317, 893. Rangers cumulative goalie stats, 311 goals against average, 902 save percentage. Kind of mid. And then I have some. Actually, we'll start with going over this last couple Ranger games, then we'll get into the headlines. We left off. The Rangers beat the Islanders 9-2. They needed a miracle to get in. That ended at Carolina. They lost that game 7-3. Then they went to Florida, to Tampa Bay, both games of which were meaningless, and combined beat those teams 9-3. Steve, for the final time, take us through those final three games.
Yeah, well, I wasn't prepared to since they wound up being meaningless. But you mentioned they go to Carolina, must-win game, and it was just more of the same. Came out in the first period overmatched. I think they had 3 or 4 shots on goal in the first 2 minutes and had won maybe the rest of the first period. Carolina was faster, seemed to be hungrier, even though the game didn't mean anything to them. And the Rangers just looked like the lesser team on the ice. Uh, the Florida game, they had a nice comeback from 3-1 down. Their first comeback win.
Yeah, double-digit goals. Yep.
Yeah. They showed some good signs, but that's the way the team's been all year. They show spurts, different players show, signs. What was the Tampa game? The 5-1 loss at home in Tampa. What was that game?
No, Tampa was yesterday, the game they won.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I was there last night with your pop. We've had a great time all year, win or lose. It's always so much fun. Um, it was, Igor gets the shutout. Kreider, if it's his last game as a Ranger, he scores a goal, then sets up his buddy Mika to get, a very modest, his 20th goal of the year. It's not like a big achievement, for one of your top forwards to score 20 goals, but I guess a nice round number. It was a good night overall. Rangers do the shirts off your back at the end of the night, and Mark's season ticket partner, Jean got selected. She got Sam Carrick's jersey. That was nice. And then when the Rangers announced the 3 stars of the game, third star was Kreider, second was Mika, first star was Sam Rosen. It was, to me, unexpected. It was, the crowd went wild. It was pretty cool. Sam was up there waving to all the fans as the, Rangers were throwing all the leftover T-shirts into the stands. So it turned out to be a great night. Bittersweet, obviously, but I had a fun time being there. Read some social, posts. Where was this team all year? You're playing 82 against a team that's, doesn't want to kind of go all out and bang up any of their stars for the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it was a nice night anyway. But the Rangers just that game against Carolina was just when they needed to, you know, get the job done. They just couldn't do it, and that was the case all year. Every big game, coming out of the break when they gave up 8 goals to Buffalo. Whenever we had high expectations for them to turn the season around, they couldn't find it. It was never there.
It's just truly incredible to me if you go down the roster just from last night and the amount of roster turnover this team had from just being so close to the Stanley Cup last year. So many different guys being thrown in and out of the lineup all year. Matthew Robertson, Vakanainen, Borgen, Dahan, Susie, Perot. I mean, it's just so many guys that there was just so much turnover for a team that came, minutes away from making the Stanley Cup last year.
You were talking.
Bounces.
You're talking a few minutes ago, going through a lot of the stats. I'm looking at them right now, and obviously, being in the penalty, no one wants to be in the penalty box. But sometimes the PM category shows your grit, your aggressiveness on the ice. Rempe led the team in 42 games with 67 minutes. We all know what Rempe brings to the table. Carrick was next with 58 in 80 games. I mean, it's just a bunch of 22, 22, 24, 42, 44. They're just not a physical team at all, and it shows here looking at the PM stats.
So let's go through a couple of the headlines now that I wrote down. We'll see if we forget any, if I forget any, and then yeah, we'll kind of wrap it up this Rangers season, and we'll move into the off season. That's about it. I've been covering the Rangers since November. It certainly flew, even with the ups and downs of the 2024-25 season. The first headline I wrote down, most importantly, Sam Rosen will retire after 40 seasons. You obviously have been alive for the entirety of it. So Jim Gordon was before, and you had Rosen for his entirety, as I just said. Did get to call 1994 Stanley Cup, called the entirety of Henrik Lundqvist's career. Got to start doing a lot of playoff games on MSG as well down the stretch, with reaching a contract to be able to call the first round. The Panarin game winner comes to my mind against Pittsburgh in Game 7. He got the call. But certainly a nice tribute they had for that matinee game against. It was the game they got outshot like 40-12 and won.
Canucks, Vancouver.
Canucks, right? And then last night was very cool. Of course, all the guys skate on the ice wearing the number 40, getting the first star of the game. On MSG last night, they had a side-by-side, just like how you would be watching the show right now. But one of the sides was Sam calling the game live with Joe, and the other one was the ice. So that was a really nice touch as well. But certainly an end of a long, illustrious era for sports media. I mean, one certainly a tragedy. Al Troutwick, who I've always been watching since I was a kid, he passed away. He worked with Sam a ton, and now Sam obviously retiring. But to take over, I'll let you also speak about that, will be Kenny Albert. Been the Rangers radio voice for a very long time.
29 years.
What'd you say?
29 years.
29 years. He'll step in. As I know from studying journalism, it's very different announcing a game from radio full time to TV. You don't have to describe the play as much on TV because the viewer is watching it. So you kind of have to fill in gaps a different way. But I bet Kenny will do a good job. So speak to me about Sam and Kenny, Stevie Boy.
Yeah, well, I grew up with Jim Gordon. He was awesome. Old school Ranger guy back in the day, of a lot of fighting, a lot of goonery and shenanigans. When Sam took over, he was a true professional. He didn't really like the fighting aspect of the game. That's where him and JD clashed. JD was a Canadian kid. He liked the fights, and that's when the Rangers would have guys like Domi and Rudy Postchek, and there'd be a lot more of that sort of stuff. But yeah, 40 years of Sam, he's been the guy. Just always brought the the viewership pertinent information. He always knew his stuff. He knew the pronunciation of players' names, and especially as difficult as they are these days. Always well prepared. Just broadcast the game. Just with great professionalism. And looking back, it's just a privilege to have been a fan for all these years, listening to him do the games. He said Joe Micheletti for the last 19, but regardless of who his partner in the booth was, he always kind of led the show, but let the other guy, do what he had to do. But yeah, just a great professional, and all the tributes to him throughout the league this year were great, and well deserved. And last night was just fantastic. You mentioned they all skated with the 40 jersey out during warm-ups, number 40 on the back. Ironically, 4-0 the final score. That's pretty funny too. But yeah, great career for Sam.
And now let's talk about the next topic. Then obviously, Steve, once I get through all of these, you tell me if you have any. But Chris Kreider could have easily been his last game as a New York Ranger. Certainly one of the clutchest blue shirts in franchise history. Got thrown right into the fire his freshman year. I mean, not his freshman year, his rookie year out of Boston College. He was not a top-known prospect by any means, like a Lafreniere or a Kakko. This was a guy that just came in the playoffs when Carl Hagelin got suspended. We'll talk about this year first, in a year where he played with Berard and Rempe. I'm shocked that he was only a -5, to be completely honest with you. I thought it'd be worse. But I guess he didn't really play with Mika this year. Mika was a -22. So Kreider played 68 games, was scratched for one of them, hurt for the other 13. Still insane. He was a healthy scratch one game. 22 goals, 8 assists, 30 points to reach the 22-goal plateau, playing with mostly Berard, Rempe, Carrick, Parsonen, guys of that nature. It's impressive stuff. He still scored 6 goals on the power play, which is a significant downgrade. 33 years old. Now you go through some of his career numbers. He's played his entirety of his career as a Ranger, 883 games, 326 goals. He's a plus 121, 116 power play goals. Now you go to his ranks among Rangers greats. No one has scored more postseason goals in Ranger history than Chris Kreider. He's got 47. The only player that's ever played in more postseason games than Kreider is Dan Girardi. He is always going to be known, as Steve Valiquette said, the greatest single period that he's ever seen from a forward in hockey ever was when last year Rangers were up 3-0 on the Hurricanes, in danger of coming back home and playing a Game 7 winner go home. And Kreider scored a hat trick in, I believe, 8 minutes, and the Rangers won in Game 6 to ultimately advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. So Valiquette said this is something we'll remember forever. I certainly will, but give me your lasting thoughts on Chris Kreider.
Yeah, you mentioned his clutch performance in the playoffs, but he was also a clutch guy in the regular season too. Uh, I don't want to call him a power play specialist, but he was awesome on the power play. Had a great hand-eye coordination, deflecting pucks, screening goalies, banging in rebounds, which baffles me why he wasn't on the first power play unit all year. I don't get that whole thing. He still had, in my opinion, plenty to offer to the team. Uh, my recollection of him is just an unbelievable, like, powerful speed skater where he could just go from standing still to just put the jets on and out race some of the best skating defensemen in the league, beat him to a puck. um, really good on breakaways. Just that's things I remember about Kreider in his career. Always a good teammate, not much of a fighter, but would always stick his nose in if he had to. And numbers weren't there this year. I mean, I watched the guy game in and game out. His play certainly wasn't there either. Somehow scored the 22 goals in 68 games. So give him another 14 games, might have scored 8. Could have been a 30-goal scorer on a really down year and with more power play time. I think his contract $6.5 million. I hate to say it, they're probably going to look to move him, but one of the great Rangers of all time, in my opinion.
Certainly, and there's been a lot of debates on social media as to if his number will be retired. He comes 1 goal short of tying the power play record in franchise history. Really doesn't make much sense when your team's been around 99 years and your head coach thinks that he's still not one of your better options on the first power play unit. That is just, but mind baffling. But a lot of what he did this year was, and that was my next topic. Peter Laviolette finishes up his second season behind the bench. I couldn't see him being behind the bench next year. It's certainly the most I've disliked the coach. I mean, so many just crazy decisions in my eyes, to put it that way. He kept the Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line together all year. That line really fell apart, I feel like, after the Lafreniere contract extension. Then the biggest mistake, and I think it could affect the Rangers' future, is he signed Gabe Perreault with 7 games left. He only played him for 4 because he healthy scratched him for 3 when the games were practically meaningless. So you give the guy an entry-level contract, and he just got paid for only playing 4 games instead of playing the full 7. That was just dumb. But there's so many decisions that he made that didn't make sense. Zach Jones, I think, could have played a little bit more. Calvin DeHaan really bashed him. I mean, Calvin DeHaan played in 2 games, Steve. Or did he play last night?
Didn't notice him.
Okay, well, Calvin DeHaan, I believe, played 2 games as a Ranger. It was the 2 home games the Rangers won, had shutouts, Quick and Igor back-to-back nights. Then Laviolette said, see ya. He never touched the ice again. So DeHaan, I believe, finished as a +4, and the Rangers never gave up a goal. So, but there's so many more decisions. I can go down the list, but just talk about Laviolette a little bit.
Yeah, well, the one thing that stands out is the too many men on the ice penalties, which
Yes.
all throughout the year just were glaring. I mean, every team gets a couple every year. I think I know the Rangers were easy double digits. I'm not going to put it all on the coach, but definitely some's got to be on the coach in the way he's maneuvering his lines. Personnel moves, we talked about a little bit earlier. Uh, not having Zibanejad and Kreider together, where they've been successful over the years, both on and off the ice. Sometimes that helps, but they definitely had some chemistry. It was nice to see last night they combined for a couple of goals. Um, and then you look up and down the team, and I've never had a year where there's this many players that were openly disgruntled to the media. Yeah, Jimmy Vesey saying, "I feel like I'm dead," on this team, sitting out every game. You mentioned Dahan. They bring him in, and he, plays 2 games. The Truba Goodrow fiasco in the preseason. Kreider, whether he had a bad back or it was just the team's way of not wanting to say they were scratching a revered veteran on the team. Riley Smith gets traded, and he all of a sudden starts scoring some goals over on Vegas. Who's I'm envious of that franchise. But just up and down the team, there's just been too many issues, and I don't know if it stems from locker room, coaching staff, or what it is. But I don't see Laviolette, coming back at all. I guess stranger things have happened, but this year was a mess in more than one aspect of the team.
And then
Oh, Zach Jones, another guy who expressed his disgruntledness, not getting a chance to play.
Laviolette could potentially finish up his Rangers tenure at 94, 59, and 11, 10 and 6 in the postseason. He's been bounced around in this league. That was his sixth team. He's never lasted more than 6 years at any stop. So we will see what happens to Peter. And then the last thing I want to bring up certainly was the Artemi Panarin news yesterday. Got accused of, I don't want to say this wrong, I believe sexual assault to my knowledge. So this was swirling in the news maybe 2 years ago, I'm going to say, but then it got put to bed and now it's back. So certainly there's a hockey side to this, and there's a financial and just a human being side to this. Hockey wise, Panarin was great, 37 goals, 52 assists. But you also have to remember he's on expiring contract. He's got 1 year left. Then you also have to think about the human being side of this. Would you just ship him to get the drama out of the locker room, considering the amount of drama that was already in this locker room this year? The least Kreider's ever spoken to the media. Dahan cursed out Laviolette to the media. A lot of short answers from all these guys. So, I mean, there's so many factors with Panarin, as I just said, money, drama, charges with sexual assault. You still have to take into account how he played this year. Just wrap your head around what you think Panarin's future with the Rangers could bring.
Well, he's the leader offensively on the team, and we know he's the defensive. Well, I'll say he doesn't like to back check. He's not a physical guy, but every team has a guy like that. You need playmakers. You need guys that can score goals, and he's been a great offensive weapon for the Rangers throughout his career. And as far as the incident goes, from what I've read, it was settled. It wasn't. There was no disclosure of the settlement, and I think that they're trying to like either sweep it under the rug or just end it at that. For Panarin's sake and the team's sake, I hope that and the victim, I hope got whatever satisfied as far as any monetary settlement was made. But I think for the Rangers and for Panarin himself, if that's the end of it, let's hope that is, and everyone can move on from there. As far as bringing him back, like I said, the drop off between him and Zibanejad in points was 27.
Yep, I was going to say that.
So Panarin's been a great Ranger. You mentioned that unbelievable goal against Pittsburgh. When things, Rangers were flying high, and it was great being a fan. So I'd like to see Brett back, and just build a better team around that.
I mean, if you look at his Ranger numbers, they're phenomenal. 186. I mean, he never had a season under 89 points in any season that he played. That wasn't the COVID year. Scored at least 22 goals. Had at least 52 assists. This was the first season in his NHL career, Steve. He was a -9. But I mean, he had 550 points in 430 games as a Ranger. I mean, those are just incredible numbers.
37. Trocheck was next on the team with 26. So you need offensive guys. You need playmakers. You need guys that put the puck in the net, and he's done that consistently as a Ranger.
But easily a point per game player in the regular season, not the same in the postseason. Numbers did drop off quite a bit. He finishes as a -12. He was never a plus for the Rangers in the playoffs. Panarin was under a point per game player, 35 points in 46 games. So always go back to that 22-23 season, that series against New Jersey, 2 points in 7 games. But nevertheless, a great career for Panarin and the Blue Shirts if this is the end. We'll now go to the questions, speak a little bit more about the offseason, and wrap up what has been an eventful, bittersweet end for Sam Rosen, I'd say. A lot of, I don't even know the adjectives you can use, but trying to look. Speaking about Kreider, one of the questions here is about K'Andre Miller. Let's answer that one. Here you go. I think it's this one.
Also, I am curious about you guys and what you think about K'Andre Miller. He's going to command a $5 to $7 million a year average AAV or whatever it's called. I do not think he's worth it. He has too many whiffs with the puck, too many misplays to be a player that gets paid that much money. And I think they need to let him walk if they can do a trade, since he is going to be restricted. I think that's what they need to look to do. That'll also help them salary cap wise.
And I'll let you finish it up, Steve. But Miller this year was even, 0 plus minus, 7 goals, 22 assists, 27 points. Always stays durable. Played in at least 74 games in each of the 4 full seasons as a Ranger. Has never been a minus on any team. 36 goals, 96 assists, plus 49. Averaged 21 minutes per game combined his 4 years. His averaged pretty much 22 minutes this year. Talk about K'Andre Miller a little.
No, I agree with everything the caller said about K'Andre. Good observation on his part. One of those guys where, you can't, he just hasn't put up the performance on the ice to warrant any kind of a contract anywhere near that. That being said, he's just got mad, God-gifted talent, skating, size, reach, puts the puck on the net when he gets out there. He takes a nice hard wrist shot. He might flourish somewhere else. I wouldn't want to give him away for a bag of pucks, that's for sure. But how many years you're going to give the guy to show what he can do? I just don't know. I mean, I saw a wild stat yesterday, which I couldn't believe. He's the only defenseman in the NHL in the last 3 years to have or average 100 shots, 100 hits, 100 hits, and 40 blocks, which I couldn't believe K'Andre Miller was that guy, but they put it up on the board yesterday. But yeah, no, you can't give him any kind of contract anywhere near those numbers if he's looking for that.
And then we got a question about Chris Drury being a general manager. Do you think he'll come back next year? I say no. We both agreed there with a no. And then
the Rangers, their front office tends to short term, usually, if it's not a rebuilding type of scenario like it was a few years back, and a lot of questionable moves, which we've talked about. I certainly wouldn't shed a tear if Drury didn't return, that's for sure.
And I guess we'll wrap it up here with the Rangers not postseason, off season, and some of these key guys. We brought up a ton of them already, but just to talk a little bit more about this roster, there's definitely going to be a lot of change. That is just my gut feeling. It feels like this window has closed. One thing Jacob Trouba was right about is this was probably the last year of this core, and it certainly seems that way. I mean, you go down this roster, some key guys, of course, Trocheck will be back. He's on a long-term extension. Sabanajad came out already yesterday, said he wants to be here. That's why he signed here. Cooley's been brought up a little bit. That would be tough to handle. Lafreniere, of course, with that contract. I mean, I'm just running down the list here. Miller now carrying a lot of money. Kreider's on expiring deal. Panarin's on expiring deal. Keep on going down. Got Miller, of course. We spoke about that. Now you're carrying money with Vakanainen and Borgen long term. We already gave Igor a ton of money. That's just to name a few, Steve. So where do you really see this going? Like what direction?
I think there's going to be a lot of player personnel moves. What they are, I don't know. Whoever's going to be making those moves, I hope they have a nice master plan set up where they're trying to build a winning team again. But it's going to take a lot of work. There's a lot of moving parts, as you mentioned, between contracts and players and age of guys. So it's not something whether it's Drury or someone else they bring in. It's not an enviable task by any means, but can't see this team looking anywhere near like this in October next season.
I certainly agree. And any lasting thoughts, I always say, but as this Rovner Report Rangers season coverage concludes until next October, once again, we will do baseball for, I guess, up to baseball. They kind of up to hockey. They stem together nicely with ended in October. Well, one New York team won before, and that would be yours, New York Yankees. But they'll blend in nicely, the Rangers and Yankees and Mets. So any lasting thoughts about the 2024-25 New York Rangers?
I think we've said all there is to say about it. And the only thing I'm going to say as we wrap up a great season with you and a great show is I'm trying to wrap my head around the futility of the organization as far as bringing home a championship. 1 in 85 years. You can't deny it. Next year's their 100th anniversary as a team, a franchise. And maybe, just maybe, for me personally, I have to start lowering my expectations because the Rangers have always been a great team to root for. They've been fun. They've had fun players. They've had great personalities. They've had great goaltending. Some of the greatest goalies in the history of the game: Eddie Giacomin, Gilles Villemure, Mike Richter, Henrik Lundqvist, and now Igor at times could be put in that category. They've had Nicky Fotiu. Now we got Matt Rempe. We've had Ty Domi. They've just always been a fun bunch to root for, to go watch. The Garden's an electric place to go. The new renovated Garden, you could get any kind of drink and food you want. The celebrity row every game. Henrik, they put on the big screen. The crowd goes nuts. They were giving out pistachio latte, Dunkin' Donuts yesterday. Here, I'll give a little shout out to Proper 12. You could get some Irish whiskey and take a picture with your buddies, Max and Sam Rovner, if you want. And maybe this is what it's all about, just having a great time and a great experience. And we ain't going to win the cup as long as I live. I'm turning 60 next month. I can't think of better time to spend my October to April than with your dad at Ranger games. So while I want a winning team on the ice, maybe just having a good time, and enjoying the ride instead of waiting to get to the end of the trip That's what it's all about. Until then, go Rangers. We'll always support you. But it's Aaron Judge season. We are watching a modern day Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, whether you know it or not. The guy is a freak. He's hitting 400. He's a beast. Go Aaron Judge. What's Juan Soto doing lately?
He ain't looking too good, but I will bring up Judge as we wrap it up and then get into a ton of baseball next week. I've always been a Judge supporter. I've said that on this show before. I think he's awesome for the sport. Batting 400 with a 512 on base percentage. This isn't like a first week stat. I mean, we're over 10% of the way into the season. Over 10%. We're almost in May. Judge, once again, I mean, a 512 OBP. I mean, that's just. He's got 22 RBIs, 7 homers, 54 total bases. I mean, he has struck out 17 times, but it doesn't matter when you're almost equivalently walking. 5 doubles, 20 runs. I mean, the guy is just a machine, and he's awesome.
Hey, before we go, and I know we're going to baseball next time, but any thoughts about Soto's comment about getting used to not having Judge behind him in the lineup? I thought it was a pretty, douchey comment.
Yes, it
Some,
certainly was. I don't know if it was intended.
with the media, but I mean, you got Pete Alonso ripping the cover off the ball behind you.
Yeah, I certainly think that it could be interpreted in a lot of ways. I think that it certainly should have been worded better. You're talking about a generational talent. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that Aaron Judge is in a different class than Pete Alonso, just with consistency and power numbers. Of course, Pete's hit 50 homers and he broke Judge's rookie home run record. But if you just look at overall numbers, I mean, not postseason because Alonso's probably been, I mean, way shorter sample size, but Alonso's been a very strong postseason player and clutch. But Judge is in a different class, and any Met fan that doesn't admit that is, delusional. I mean, that is the word I'd use. But at the same time, it's certainly an adjustment, right? I mean, Soto didn't really have protection on top of him like a Lindor, but he's so used to having a guy like that behind him that he's going to get more pitches that he wasn't getting with Judge. And I think that a lot of fans turn to bashing Alonso instead of complimenting Judge. And I don't know if Pete's necessarily taken any offense to that with the way he's been playing. It's usually a slow starter, right, with Lindor. But nevertheless, no matter what comments he's making, he's not playing well. The body language has been really bad. I mean, yesterday I was at the game. He had 2 balls, 110 plus miles per hour, a ground down, a double play. His expected batting average on those balls were both over 500. He still has reached base safely in 18 of his 19 games, whether it's a walk or hit. But when you're making $700+ million, you can't be hitting 221.
I mean, I think Soto will be fine, but I'm just, I thought it was interesting the comment he made. And to Judge's credit, he came out and said, Alonso is a great guy to have behind you in any lineup. And I lobbied for the Yankees to sign him in the offseason. I would love to have him. Although Goldschmidt, can't complain about his start with the Yankees hitting 352. But Pete just sometimes maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Yeah, and I certainly think that it was a down year for Alonso last year, and that says a lot. He still hit over 30 homers, but a lot of people forget that regular season. It's what he did in the playoffs. He was so big for New York. Of course, the Milwaukee home run, but I don't think it could be taken away. Mets were faced elimination against the Dodgers. Game 5 was there with my pops. He had a homer in the first inning. So he does a lot of things, but if you look at the Mets offense right now, no one has over 20 hits. No one has over 4 doubles. No one has over 4 homers. No one has over 9 RBIs. No one has over 29 bases.
Yeah,
Except Alonso.
yeah.
So,
Yep. The pitching's been taking him so far.
yeah, certainly has. And, the Mets, this isn't a Juan Soto issue. This is a lineup that is really good on paper that's struggling. Brandon Nimmo batting 194, Marte 182, Taylor 174, Vientos 172, Winker 200, Beatty 209. I mean, this is a team sport. It's a team. I mean, Jose Siri was 1 for 20 before he got hurt. I mean, these are
Wait, yeah, we knew we had a weak bat. We didn't know it was that weak.
yeah. So I mean, a 375 slugging percentage is, that's about 301 on base percentage. That's not going to last you the whole year. Put it that way. But listen, I bet the bats will get hot at some point. You keep
Yeah,
a 12 and
yeah.
7 pace.
Goes hit his first homer, so he'll he's a good hitter, solid hitter. He's not going to hit 152 all year for sure.
Well, if you go 12 and 7 pace, you win over 100 games. So
That's what I'm saying. They're 12-7, and you just read off the batting averages. It's incredible. And Alonso's got 21 ribbies. The next highest guy is Nimmo at 9. So if you're a Met fan, the pitching holds up. You got to be looking at a nice season because the bats will eventually wake up.
certainly agree, but nevertheless, it still was a hockey edition for the final time. We will throw in the Stanley Cup during each baseball show because I think besides March Madness is the best tournament in sports. In the Pro 4 main sports, there's not a close second. I mean, there's just not. There's nothing like the intensity of the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you're a non-hockey fan, I totally recommend watching it just for the atmosphere, the hitting, the pace is different. There's certainly nothing like it. So I recommend that. But the Rangers finished this 99th season in club history. Sam Rosen's 40th. Potentially Chris Kreider's last at 39, 36, and 7. 85 points. They won the President's Trophy, I believe, 366 days ago, and now will be playing in Cancun in just a few days. So, AJ Rovner, Steve Shanamanico, we will see you next week as we hit the diamond for the next couple months. Appreciate it.